Hey, I'm really glad you joined and are going to listen to this podcast between me and Leah Corselli. The reason I'm glad is because you're in for a real treat. I've known Leah for a long, long time, and I'm aware of how special she is, and you too are soon going to be catching that magic. In our conversation, we spoke about one of the big things that most sellers always have to deal with, that prickly customer, that one person who you can never even get to crack a smile. Well, right away, you're going to notice that Leah has amazing grace and incredible dexterity when dealing with people. So she's going to talk about how she gets those types of clients and prospects to loosen up and trust her. And I think that's a really important thing for every seller to figure out because, of course, every buyer is different and they've always got their guard up. So I'm happy that you're going to be listening in a moment. I do have to remind you that if you're looking for daily tips between the time that you catch these podcasts, head on over to mysalesday.io and sign up for your free trial. For 3 weeks, you'll get the My Sales Day newsletter. It's a 90-second read with great tips and skill recommendations in your box every morning. Certainly 90 seconds is not a big obligation for you to dedicate to your growth and your skill development. mysalesday.io. Head over there now before you continue with me and Leah. Thanks for joining. Leah Corselli, welcome to the My Sales Day podcast.
Hello, it's great to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. She is coming to you all from just under the Hollywood sign in LA. Leah Corselli, someone I found wandering the streets of LA years ago. That is so wrong. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Seriously, nobody else on this planet sells with as much grace. There is a picture of Leah in the Sales Hall of Fame dictionary next to the word effortless. The net effect is her customers willingly hand over all the keys to their castle. I have seen this happen numerous times. Leah, our listeners are used to us diving in right away. So let's do it. Are you ready for 25 minutes of wisdom?
Yes, I am.
All
Let's
right. Well, I like to start with the first chapter titled, I don't mean to brag, but hey, this is your spotlight. You get to talk about your defining career win. So, me and the listeners want to know about that win and the skills that you used. Talk to us. What's your career defining win?
Well, when I think back, and it's been a long time, but it was probably my first year or maybe year and a half or so. I was
Your
like,
career defining win was in year one?
well, I mean, I think it was when it was the first big taste of success that kind of got me going
Got it.
for the
I
next,
like it.
you know.
Because I didn't want the inference to be that it's all been downhill since then, because I know that's not that's not true.
It served as a primer for
Okay.
many
All right.
more. But I think the biggest it was sort of a kind of remarkable thing at the time. It was when I was at usatoday.com and very new in my career. And at that time, I was sort of like the part of the stepchild team. It was,
Mm,
the print version was sort of
mm.
had all the glory and us dot comers were or us digital people were kind of like, the people that came later. So
Yeah, careful. Don't reveal your age here.
so I think the first big sale that was just a huge success where we broke barriers at that publication was with Universal Pictures. And at the time, we were never a must buy. A lot of times, the studios, when they wanted to release a movie, they would always buy, the publications that were in the markets where the studios were. So New York and LA, New York Times and LA Times. They were responsible for 25% of the box office proceeds during opening
Mm,
weekend, which is a huge, huge deal.
mm,
So, we really wanted to go to the studios and position ourselves as a must buy. And the way we really did that, with a lot of help, we revved up our machine. We got our, brilliant head of marketing at the time, our publisher. We looked at all the different assets, the value proposition, and figured out what really could make a difference with the studios. How can we get them to think of us as their must buy? And so we came up with this idea of being a 75% solution. So remember, 25% of the
Mm,
box office sales were in those two markets.
mm.
They never looked at USA Today unless, someone, just a celebrity or whoever, wanted to
Yeah, director of a
put their
movie or
name.
something. Yeah.
Right. And so we positioned ourselves as a 75% solution because if you looked at our distribution across the US, 75% of our audience, which roughly, correlated with the other 75% of the box office proceeds, came from
Mm,
those markets. And so that's what we went in with. And of course, we packaged it in a way that, was really smart and efficient. And what it ultimately did is it got them to think about us differently. And as a result, they committed to a three-picture deal, which was sort of unheard of at that time
mm.
because when a movie was being released, the most important thing is you look at who their target is and who our audience is, and you try to match it and you craft a story around that. Um, but this was really just going in blind, saying, look at your slate, know that we're going to be right for at least three of those titles, and here's why, and here's what we can do for you. And so that's how we sold it. And it ended up selling through to Universal. And I think the most important takeaway from that moment and what really got me excited about just building relationships to come was that once they had a taste of what it was like to work with us and also what it was like to um, evaluate, okay, at the end of this campaign, did it work for us? Like, look at the impact that we had. It really gave us the opportunity to be, one of their go-to vendors, if you
Mm.
will, for years to come.
So great story. And having sold in LA myself, I know that breaking those barriers with those studios is not easy, but you are being so humble right now. Where was the and that's one of your strengths. Where was the Leah Corselli skills and all of that? What were the skills that you learned and used?
Listen, Michael, it takes a team for sure. So
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the people that were involved. But for me, the skills were really all about, approaching the problem strategically
Yep.
and not making it about us.
Mm,
What we have all, we're great and here's why. It's we're great for you, Mr. Advertiser, and here's
mm,
why. So it's
mm-hmm.
really looking at what is their problem and how are we going to help them solve it? What solution are we going to bring? So it was really a lot of strategic selling. It was a lot of going in and, in some instances, we didn't have the relationship. So a lot of
Sure.
times people say, why did you make that sale? And people say, well, it's the relationships. We have the relationships. Well, oftentimes you don't have that luxury. So
Right.
being able to go in and listen to what they needed, craft a solution, and then show them how it would work and then execute. So I think,
Yeah. Takes a lot of people.
customer service at the end of it and why they continue to buy with us. Um, past the three-picture deal or the contract was because it's like really caring and being consultative to them, right?
Yeah, I'll translate that into a couple words because I think our listener might, some of the listeners who are out there thinking about this strategically to their world, they like things synthesized, and I would just say resource mobilization. Like you got the people together inside the org to support your efforts because you can't do it alone. Can't do it alone.
Right.
Good story. All right. Let's get into the next chapter. Let's meet our guests. Let's slow it down a little bit. Yet, we're going to do a kind of a flash round here, a few questions. Leah, in 10 words or less, what do you sell now?
What do I sell now? Well, I'm at the Independent, and what I sell is really premium ad experiences that are designed to reach our growing and independently minded audience.
What are the core, flash round question number 2, what are the core skills you use daily to succeed?
So the core skills are probably just prospecting, outreach, leveraging network. You mentioned this earlier, resourcing is a critical, making
Sure.
sure that you are um, looking at launches, like what, where is there opportunity for someone to buy and
Mm,
what do you have for them? So a lot of resourcing and strategic approach to selling.
good, good. And number 3, how many years overall have you been selling?
Oh gosh, 20?
How
I
many
hate
of
that.
those?
Why do you make us say that out loud?
Because it's a setup to this question. How many of those years have you been happy and fulfilled?
20?
Most people. Uh-huh. Yeah, right. No, of course, I get it. All right, complete the sentence. If I hadn't gone into sales, I would have become a.
A scientist. I was on my
Get
way.
out of town. Get out of
Yes,
town. Okay.
I was literally starting graduate school and was starting my life at a lab bench in, by myself, solo. So,
That makes sense. Scientist, media sales. Scientist, media sales. I
yes.
can see how
So I
that's
made the
yeah,
pivot.
good. All right. And then finally, complete the sentence. I love selling because.
The people, I think I love, I know that that's probably not the most popular, response, but I have to say, I'm always saying I love selling because you get to meet and work with people from all different backgrounds, different personalities. And I think not only is it really fun, but it always stretches you sort of as a person to learn
Oh
and
my God, are you going with that bullshit? Really? Are you sticking with
really does. Listen, there's plenty of times that you're with a buyer and you're like, wow, we're really gelling and you get to be good friends. Some of my closest friends are in the
Yeah.
industry, but also it's, you really get to master the art of pushing through when the going gets tough. And that's usually with difficult buyers, coworkers, what have you.
Well, in a serious mode here, I hope you took note of that custom intro. Sorry, bespoke intro that I wrote for you because it's true. I really have found very few people on this planet who are as graceful as you are, and your ability to get people to trust you quickly is just unbelievable. And if you continue to spew those kinds of cliches as answers, that'll get you everywhere. All
Listen,
right, next chat. I know I think everyone is now
it goes
learning
on
that
and on.
you.
I'm very defensive about that, but we can move on.
What? Why? Why are you defensive? I'm
No,
being. I know it is the people. I'm just being. Just the way
I
you answered it. You answered it like the people.
listen,
It's
I love
true.
everybody, but I oftentimes don't love everybody. And at the end of
Yes.
the day, that's what you learn to push through.
All
Some
right. Well, let's push against the agenda. We'll let the agenda just simmer for a second. Let's talk about that. People are a big part of what selling is about. And one of the things I think that you and I have in common as we've sold a lot together side by side is we kind of laugh about that answer about people because sometimes we make best friends from these buyers and even the people inside the organizations. And then other times we're like, God, get me away from that person. I think there's a certain kind of just realization as sellers that we have to just conclude that we're not going to be best friends with everybody, but man, that next person that we prospect and get a new meeting with, that could be a new best friend. And you did bring up prospecting as something that is that you still do after so many years.
Yeah,
I don't think I really asked a question. I just kind of
yeah.
rambled on there. It is the people. Uh, great. Let's fast forward to the next segment. We've solved that one. All right.
Awkward silence.
I love this next segment, and again, people are getting the feel that you and I know each other very well. But the next segment is called Superpower, and the title is My Superpower Skill Is. The point of the segment, before you finish that sentence, the point of the segment is to reinforce that every seller has many superpowers, two, three, four, five, 10. And yet a lot of these types of shows and or development skills books and gurus out there are always focusing on the development areas. And it's like, enough with my weaknesses already. What about my fastball? I got a really good fastball. And I want people to stress that, because the people who are listening right now, that listener who is out there trying to get tidbits from you and me, they want to know how to throw that fastball. So what is your superpower, and how did you learn to make it a superpower? Talk to us.
Well, I would have to say my superpower is getting hard buyers or challenging buyers um, to work with me, like being able to build those relationships with people that either have a tough or like a tough reputation or
Mm,
are really hard to get into. Um, I I Many years ago, at the beginning of my career, I took a it was one of those strength finder tests,
mm,
and one of the top traits that I exhibited was, I think it was called individualism. And in that context, it meant that I was able to tease out sort of the positive or the good or something that really shined in every single person that I'm around. And I kind of took it for granted. I never really thought about it like, what the hell is that? Who cares about that? I need to sell stuff. But now, when you ask this question, and when I came up with, I have the ability to form relationships with people who are typically tough to form relationships
yeah.
with, I went back and I thought about that.
Mm,
And what it is whether it's a boss, a buyer, whoever, you always hear they're difficult, they're really hard to get to know, they're hard to get into, what have you. And so for me, I think just naturally my approach is to, when I meet someone or when I finally am able to break through, I'm able to sort of look at why they're being how they are, or why they're asking the specific questions. So this is kind of a muddy response, but by way of an example, years ago, me and one of my colleagues, we were going in to pitch to Disney, and it was Disney Travel, and it was the client side. And this specific client, we were armed with all the information. We'd actually run a couple campaigns already through with the agency, but with this client, it was our time to really go deeper and build that relationship and those contracts, and really grow them, like kind of develop a longer, deeper relationship with them to build the
mm,
business. And
right.
the moment we walked in, we had our dog and pony show. Here's what we've done so far. Here's what worked and what have you. There was just no warm and fuzzies coming from that room.
Mm,
Even though we were really confident and armed with everything we needed to have this person trust us and have a productive dialogue, um, he was completely unimpressed and, asked very tough questions that inevitably we had to go back and get the answers to, which was okay, absolutely. Um, but we walked out of there thinking, oof, that was really challenging. And
yep.
we felt like we were in this golden position because all the great campaigns and all the success that we had had so far, but in that room it all felt squashed. Anyway, this is becoming a long-winded story, but at the end of the day, taking a look at sort of his questions, his approach to us, and what we were there to do, it made perfect sense. Get him the information that he wants, find out why he's asking those questions, get him the information,
Mm, yeah.
and then go back and follow up, and then figure out, what sort of feedback does he have for us. In any event, he ended up being a really close, client. It's, again, hard to get into, but we had developed that trust. And every time we went in that room from that point forward, it was sort of like a tight relationship. Um, I wouldn't say warm fuzzies, but more along those lines. And I think that's when you're really able to break through and act as partners. It's so much less transactional at that point. But the key is to build that relationship, and it's not easy to do that with everyone. Um,
That's a really interesting anecdote. And for me, the skill check against that is your ability to honor his individualism and feed him exactly what he wanted. He didn't want a lot of fluff. He didn't want a lot of pomp and circumstance. To your point, give him what he needs. And more importantly, find out what he needs. You trigger a story that I have, and I'll share it if you allow me to, even though this is your podcast, you're the guest. There was this one seller that I had who learned this technique, I think by accident. They had a similar situation where the prospect, there was two of them in the room, and I was there with the seller, and the seller was going through the motions. And boy, the tension was palpable, and the tension was created by the disinterest that the prospect was exhibiting. And lo and behold, right when I was about to interrupt and turn the tables back on the customer, ask them some questions, get them talking, engage, etc., the seller closed his laptop and looked the buyer in the face and said, "You are obviously very uninterested and very unimpressed." Yeah, but that was the reaction. Not both of them. One of the particular prospects kind of had that reaction, and it broke the ice. And I was so proud of the seller for reading the room and breaking script. And I
yeah.
think that is a form of the individualism that you are honoring here and featuring, which is give the buyer what they want.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that, by the way, that's a really gutsy move
It
um,
is.
that the seller did or made. But, you don't have to even approach it like that. I mean, just the other day,
Correct.
I had a meeting with someone who I met through it was a BFF's husband. And I had met him only a couple minutes in a really odd circumstance. It's a juicy story, but I'm not going to bore the listeners with the details behind that. But a very awkward circumstance. And regardless, we had a meeting set up. Within the first couple minutes of the meeting, I had planned to sort of introduce and acknowledge, oh, last time we chatted, this is where we met, and what happened, because it was funny. When he came on that screen, he was cold as ice. He
Oh
wanted
God.
no pleasantries.
Oh,
No, there was no, it was all business. So, another superpower, I guess you could say, is understanding when the buyer's energy does not match yours and being able to quickly pivot, right? So I
well, there are
we
very few who are
pivoted,
better at it than you. Sorry.
and within 10 minutes we had a great productive meeting, and he warmed up. So all good.
I love it. Good thread. Unfortunately, it means we're going to punt on a few other segments, but I want to wrap with the final segment, which has to be a part of all of these episodes, and it's what I call the sales life, or basically the feeling on the street. I don't think selling has ever been harder. Full stop. Headwinds are fierce. It often feels executive management are not connected with the seller's need. I'm not just talking about tools and training. I'm talking about emotional support, emotional nourishment. And that's not to say we have to, as sales managers, wrap our arms around sellers every 5 minutes and give them a participation trophy, but just checking in with the sellers. Leah, it's hard to sell these days. The winds of competition are fierce. How do you do it? Tell me and the listener how you stay positive, how you fight through these environments where the support is nominal and you know you have to keep going every single day. What are your tips and tricks?
Well, I mean, it's a couple things. I think first and foremost, we're in sales. You
Yeah, yeah,
cannot take things personally. You
yeah.
constantly have to remember you cannot take things personally. You're never going to get the validation, on a daily, weekly, even monthly basis sometimes. It's really all about your last sale, right? That's the
Mm,
only time you're going to get that sort of celebration and that pat on the back. So the first is just to remember not to take things personally all the
mm,
time. The other thing is communication, I think, is always key. Not just with your buyers, but also within your organization and your management. If you're in a slump or a bit of a lull, like a dry period, it's really important to over communicate in a clear and concise way because not many people have time to read a big report on what you're up to, but just regular check ins. Here's what's on my list. Here's what I did about it. Here's the response that I got. Um, and then go on from there. I think
mm.
that whether it's managers or colleagues or what have you, it's really important information for them to have. And if you sit in a silo where, a lot of times that's where sellers are, they're just alone and paving their own way. It's
Yeah.
important to just over communicate in a clear and concise way what you're doing, what the response is, what's your plan. And then, like I said in the beginning, don't take it personally.
There's instances, even for the most tenured seller out there who might be expecting a reaction from a buyer or assuming some sort of a reaction from some of their actions, and they don't get it, and it sticks with them. And the point is, turn the laptop off and go back to your pets and your kids and your family and go have a life, and then go at it again the next day. All right, let's wrap up the session, which has been so fun for me. Obviously, I hope that's coming across. If anybody hasn't noticed, I would build any of my teams if I were ever to do that again, drafting Leah Corselli first. Okay, we always end with one thing. It's a way to tie this up in a bow for our listener out there who's looking for that advantage. They're looking for that one tip that can hopefully get them to break through on one account or a series of accounts. What's the one thing, Leah, that you take from our session here, our banter, that you want to leave with the listener? What's the one thing?
I think the one thing is to always qualify. I mean, I think I mentioned it when I talked about universal pictures and finding out what was important to them. And I sort of referenced it when we talked about the tough buyer situation with Disney. When they ask questions, find out why are they asking the question. It's your opportunity to find out how much weight do you put on the question that they're asking, how important is it to them, and what you can do to sort of sort through and figure out what's it going to take to close that
Figure
business.
and figure out the truth.
Right. It's
We
you're
we
with qualifying, I truly feel not that there's ever a silver bullet, but you're getting that much closer to
yeah,
understanding what that silver bullet is
yeah.
for a buyer. What's going to
Yeah,
make them
we as sellers, we often hear something and we don't in the moment say, "Wow, that's really ambiguous. I got to find out more. I got to qualify." And we move on. Listen, understand to your point. I love the word wait. I teach that in my advisory practice with customers all the time. Qualify those statements from buyers. Love it. My one thing, I just got to repeat it. You had me at minute 24 or whatever in this podcast. Don't take it personally. Just keep going. Fight it. There's no crying in baseball and there's no hugs in sales. Right? All
Michael,
right.
you told me years ago there's no tears in digital media, and I
No,
I try to
there
live by
really
that.
aren't. There aren't. All righty, Leah Corselli, you got to go hit the streets again and make some money. So we're going to have to say goodbye, but first I got to remind our listeners why they joined us. You listened because you're trying to learn from Leah and trying to be the best sales pro that you can be, even if it's a little thing that you picked up today or by reading the My Sales Day newsletter. It could make a huge difference in your selling. But your mind has got to be open. Leah, thanks a ton for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. It was great to be here.
Oh my gosh, it was. And for you and everyone, remember, better habits equal better selling. Thank you for listening to My Sales Day. It was great having you here. For more, listen to our other episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, leave us a review. I care what you think. And because I'm a seller like you, I got thick skin, so I can take anything you got. You can also visit mysalesday.io to join our email list and community dedicated to sellers just like you. My Sales Day is a podcast by sellers for sellers. And if you got something out of today's episode, help out a friend by sharing this episode with them. My Sales Day is proudly produced in partnership with Westport Studios. Views and opinions expressed by guests on My Sales Day are their own and may not reflect the views and opinions of their organization. Start your sales day the right way with My Sales Day. I'll see you in our next episode and in the daily newsletter.